My name's Todd Blake, and I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and I was planning to go to UF pretty much my whole life, and so I applied after high school, got into UF, and I started there, and about a month into being at UF, I was diagnosed with cancer. We started classes, and I was about a month and a half in and just getting through like our first exams and all that, and started feeling just tired all the time. Like I was reading textbooks and falling asleep, which is not like typical me. So I started having those symptoms, and I started having night sweats, and like was constantly turning the AC down, getting like itchy, just a lot of weird stuff. And I came home one weekend to visit my parents, and I was like, yeah, like I have this weird like lump here, and I've got this like other lump under my armpit. And my dad's a dentist, and he was like, oh, like that's not good. That's not normal. So it was, I think once we got started at Mayo, that they really ran like the real test, and they were like, it's probably lymphoma. You need to, come home, take a semester off. We need to do scans. We need to get started on treatment, that kind of thing. I went through about 4 months of chemo and every other week, it's kind of the best way I can describe it is like getting the flu every 2 weeks. So it's just grind, and I had 16 treatments. That was the worst day of my life, the relapse, because you really lost hope. Like you were very hopeful, I was very hopeful during the first round of treatment that it would be cured and I'll go back to normal. And I was hanging on to all of the things in my life that I wanted to go back to. But when that happened, I really had to let go of like, all right, I'm not gonna have a normal college experience. I'm gonna live at home. I'm gonna be sick. I don't know if this is gonna get cured. Maya and I met in high school, actually. We were in all the same classes together throughout high school, just friends. And she ended up going to FSU when I went to Florida, but we had always kind of stayed in touch, and I always knew that I liked her. As I went into my second transplant, I just knew that I didn't want to be apart from her anymore, and she felt the same way. And so that was when we really took the big commitment, and I asked her to marry me, and she came out to Seattle with me for a transplant and lived out there for like 5 months with me. Like I knew that she was going to be the person that would be there through thick and thin, whatever happened. And we had to face this horrible thing, but we knew we had to do it together.
The hardest thing was getting married. And I don't think so much getting married, but making the decision to get engaged, because it was a very conscious decision. We talked about it a lot, and we talked about everything that could happen, and it really sucked because you had to live out all those details. And at the time that we got engaged, we thought Todd maybe had a year and a half left. And he was actually about to go into a transplant, which was 50% fatality, I think. So we were just very realistic that there was a very high chance that he could pass away soon, and if not soon, in the next few years.
School was tough along the way. I mean, it definitely took the back burner. In the beginning, I dropped all my classes, I took medical leave, and I just was not focused on that because I thought I'd get back to normal. And then after I relapsed and I realized that this was going to be a much more permanent thing, I started to say, well, I need to be making progress towards something. And so I looked into what programs they had from a distance, and I found the online business program. And that allowed me to get a business degree from a distance at my own pace, but still be a UF student. It was definitely symbolic for me to walk at graduation and to graduate with a 4.0. Like that was such a big deal to me along the way, because I think I had this like inner pride that I just had to show people, like, yes, I've had all this happen to me, but I'm still just as smart as I was. Like I may have had to switch my major and I may have had to do all these different things to get through treatment, but I'm still just as good of a student as any other student here, and I can excel.
Todd Blake.
I try to live very in the present, and I try not to think about my future health, because they could come up with a totally novel cure in another year or two, or they might not. And I might just keep doing these trials, and eventually it stops working, and I get some kind of infection, and that's how it ends. And I know that's a very real possibility, and I live in spite of that, but you have to live along the way. So you got to keep having goals, and you got to keep getting up every morning and doing whatever it is that you like to do. So yeah, it does scare me. I mean, I think it scares me more for the people around me than it does myself. I've come to acceptance with my own health, but I realize that I'm going to leave behind all these people and all these remnants. And so I think the bigger fear is like, did I leave it all in a good situation, better or worse? And so that's kind of where, like, if I start something, I want to finish it. I don't want to leave all of these open-ended things behind. And that's tough in a marriage and in any relationship. I think it's hard to, like, always be a little bit afraid of the next commitment because you don't know if you can follow through with it. The most important, I think, after all of this that I found out is just spending time with the people you care about and the people you love, making that a priority, making sure that I'm spending time with my family and my wife and my dog, who is crazy, having those moments, because that's really all that matters. And then beyond that, still having ambitions and, you know, wanting to leave a legacy. And for me, that's been Live for Today Foundation. That's been kind of my passion and my work that I want to leave behind. During treatment, I kind of felt isolated. I was in this hospital with all these older patients, and I was the only young person going through cancer treatment that I knew of. And I just felt like I needed to find other young people who had cancer. And so I looked around, and there just really wasn't anything out there. There was nothing like that. There was, no support groups. I mean, there wasn't anything. And so the combination of that, trying to find other young adults who had cancer, with some really unique things that happened to me during my treatment. My dad reached out to people in the community, and they offered like all these amazing things for me to go do instead of being in college and being a normal young person. It was like, why don't you go fly an airplane, or we'll take you to get your motorcycle's license. I mean, really cool stuff. I took those two ideas and I just said, like, this should be out there for everybody who's a young adult going through cancer. Like, this is what's providing hope for people that are in this. And so I met two other young women at a Relay for Life that had cancer as young adults, and they had some of their own ideas about what would be good for young people, and we just said, look, let's do this, And within 6 months, we had a business plan, and we were ready to go, and we started operating back in April of 2013, and together we pulled it all off. We've fundraised about $50,000 or $60,000 to date, which is no small amount, but it's also far from where we'd like to grow and get to. I mean, we're an all-volunteer organization right now, and we'd love to get to the point where we can expand outside of Jacksonville. I would just feel like I didn't achieve what I came here to do if I didn't leave something behind that made the world a better place.
Changing, 'cause I built my life around you. When people first get a diagnosis, it seems like your life is over. You hear you have cancer, you think, I'm gonna die in a month. You have no idea. But over time, I've seen that it's possible to live with the disease, and that has helped me accept it and see that it's not such a negative thing after all.